Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. For today's video, it's the last in our London series, and we're heading over to a bridge next to St Paul's Cathedral called the Millennium Bridge to do a slightly long exposure shot of some people walking by. I'll show you that on screen now. So if you've been watching the series, you'll know we popped over to a few sites up here at the top. We went to the Gherkin, we went to Leadenhall Market, we took a nice picture of the Lloyd's building, worked our way down past the Tower of London, over Tower Bridge, did Girl with the Dolphin, and did a shot of the Scoop, which was great, and then past HMS Belfast. If you keep going up the river, you very quickly end up at the Millennium Bridge here, and that faces right up towards St Paul's Cathedral, which is a cracking shot. So the bridge itself, you walk up the centre here and then double back on yourself and walk over. And if you stand in this spot in the middle, you can look back and see the two walkways all the way down the bridge to St Paul's and get the people blurred as they walk towards you, which is the shot I went down for. The walk was sort of 5 minutes from where we were last at the Scoop. It's very easy to get around down there, and so much stuff to photograph. If you haven't been down, it's well worth a photography visit to London. So that's it for the journey. Okay, so our shot today was a 15mm shot at the wide end of the 15-35. The ISO was down on low, which is a value of 50. That was because we were capturing a lot of light with a very low shutter speed. That was down at 1/10 of a second. To compensate for that, the aperture was very high. That was up at f/22, and that gave us quite a well exposed shot. We were shooting electronic shutter. We didn't go under 0.5 of a second for shutter speed, so didn't need to go to mechanical. And our subject to detect was set to none. We were on single shot shooting as well. So this was a picture of a mural I saw on the way down to St Paul's. And then I went past a little skate park with some graffiti, which I thought looked kind of cool. So I took a shot of that. Onwards to the Millennium Wheel. That's always nice to shoot, especially when the sun's dropping. And I was going to do a shot of Big Ben and Westminster through this arch, but it was very, very busy. So I wandered around and took a shot of Westminster just on the roadside. Okay guys, so this is the image as taken. It's what I was looking for in terms of content. It does need an edit. So I was looking to capture the hustle and bustle of city life in London. I've got a bit too much yellow blur off this gentleman at the front, and the general style of the image is actually exactly what I wanted to shoot. I don't really want to lose the blue sky. I quite like keeping the tree on the right. So the crop's going to be quite tricky on this. I'm worried that the person in the yellow at the front is going to be too distracting. Let's see what happens if I lose the tail end of them. So I'm on the clone stamp tool. I'll make a new layer for this. And I'll just see if I can pull these railings down the other side of the hood. I'll use a couple 100-pixel brush. See if we can tidy this up a bit. I'll see if there's any option to bring the sky down. So I'll just grab the blue bit, the best bit of the sky, and just copy and paste that, and that'll stick that in as another layer, which I can then move around. And I'll see if I can just blend that in further down, and that will let me crop the sky. So I'll pop it there, and then I'll put a layer mask on, and then I'll use a brush with the colour black, and I'll just start trying to fade it in and see if I can make it look natural. If I can, I'd like to crop in slightly differently, but I didn't want to lose that bit of sky. That's not actually too bad. Okay, now I can bring the crop down and still keep the blue of the sky that I want. That's better. Okay, I'd like to bring up the blacks and also boost the colours. So we'll start with the blacks. I'll just merge those two into a new layer. So I'm duplicating the layers and then merging them together because there's a mask involved, so I can always fall back and play with that if I want to. Now we'll start with the black point, Control L to bring up levels, and then just raise that slider. That's it, so just darkening this down, that's what I was after. And then we'll duplicate the layer again and we'll go Image Adjustments, Vibrance. And I'd like to boost the vibrance for the green of the tree and the saturation for the glass. Okay, that's good. That's more like what I wanted. Don't know if that black point's helping. It's probably a consequence of vibrance. Okay, I will pull the overall lower image up now with curves. Control M for curves, just pulling up the bottom part of it. Wonder how far I can go with bringing that sky down. I might have another go at pulling the blue of the sky down, because that is probably my favourite bit of the bit above St. Paul's. And then we'll do the same thing with the layer mask. Okay, so we can crop in more tightly now, which is nice. So the reason I want to crop in more is to bring that focal point right to St. Paul's at the centre. But I didn't want to lose the blue sky because I think it looks good. Okay, so before and after, we really pulled out the green and the blue in that layer, which is really nice actually. So we'll duplicate that layer. And I'm going to quickly bring up shadows and highlights, so image adjustments, shadows and highlights. I'm just going to see if we can pull up a little bit of the darks. Okay, so that's just 7% on the shadows, just 1% on the highlights, just to tone down the sky a little bit. Okay, in terms of our lines, these are quite nice, equally spaced. I've got one going into the corner and one not. We're positioned slightly off to the right of the path. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paving slabs, and we're pretty well in line with the third one. Yeah, we are. So we're stood off centre, which is why the rails go into the corner this side and not quite on this side. I can crop to fix. So is that a better image? So it feels right to have both rails going into the corners. Focal point's clearly St. Paul's. I've lost a bit of the tree by doing that, which I didn't really want. What I'll do, I'll just grab all of that, Control A, Control C for copy, and then Control V to paste as a new layer. We'll go back and we'll crop this again, and then paste that layer, and then move it. Okay, so we pasted the layer underneath, which I'm keeping, and then just wondering if I can cheekily stick the tree back in. So I'll pop a layer mask on, and I'll paint the whole thing black to get rid of it, and then I'll use a brush. About 1,000 pixels will be quite big. 50% opacity is fine, and just pull back in some of that tree. That's better. I didn't want to lose this. This is a nice part of the image. So we'll just replace the tree, which I'm happy with. Okay, might just bump up this bottom section of the image a bit. Okay, so I'm just going to merge all of those layers together. And I'm just going to use the dodge tool with a large brush, 7% exposure, and just brighten up a little bit this foreground. Okay, that's better. And one more touch of vibrance and saturation, and then I think we're done. So 10% on vibrance, 4% saturation. And that really is the sort of shot I was going for. I could have done a slightly longer exposure and blurred people more, but it was a very busy scene and I wanted to be as quick as I could. There's enough distortion that you can't really tell who anyone is, which is what I aimed for. I did want it to show people moving about. I didn't want a quiet scene. And St. Paul's looks great, and I quite like the sky and the tree. I think that balances out quite well. So all told, I think that's exactly the picture I wanted to go for, so I'm happy with that one. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys. It was a great trip down to London, and I would recommend it. The 15-35 was the perfect lens for the job. If you've enjoyed watching the series, please do like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.